at the National Renewable Energy Laboratory in Denver, USA. As a renowned expert in developing artificial intelligence technologies to combat climate change, he has been called to deliver lectures in conferences and panel sessions in conferences worldwide, including a TEDx talk in 2021. Dr. Chanda has 6 years of experience working with 3 prominent American electricity distribution companies and 2 US Department of Energy national laboratories. Dr. Chanda has filed for 3 patents in cloud computing for the power grid. He has published more than 15 peer-reviewed papers in high-impact power system journals. His research interests are improving power systems simulation, load forecasting, and clean energy technologies to increase energy security and resilience for every individual on Earth. He received his bachelor's degree in electrical engineering from NIT Durgapur in West Bengal. He received his master's and PhD degrees from Washington State University, USA. He is a member of IEEE and has served as Vice Chair of the IEEE Young Professional Society and contributing member of the IEEE USA Energy Policy Committee. So Dr. Chanda started 2 commercially successful clean energy startups as an entrepreneur, Sync and Intlectual. His companies have raised funding from venture capital firms and federal funding agencies and graduated from renowned accelerators like Techstars. He is also the co-author of a forthcoming title, Resilience of Smart Grid by Willy UK. Sir, on behalf of NIT Agartala, I welcome you, sir.
Thank you very much, Professor Bhumi, for having me. It's an honor to come and present to your university today. So, should I start presenting this case?
Yes, sir. Sure, sir. You can start.
Hello, is my screen visible?
Yes, sir. Visible.
Okay, great, thank you. Sorry, I got disconnected with you valuable, but I'm back. And again, thank you very much for the introduction, Professor Bhumik, and welcome to everyone who is taking their afternoon to spend time and hear about my experiences in starting a startup. Like Professor Bhumik mentioned, I graduated with a degree in electrical engineering from MIT Kapoor, and after that I've been living in the US and studying, working on different projects that cuts across government agencies, public-facing companies like electricity distribution companies, and at the same time I had the opportunity to work on two startup projects. And though in no way my experiences are comprehensive, they're barely the tip of the iceberg, I do have some experiences in starting a startup, so which I'd like to share with you. My background has been extensively mentioned so far, but some of the big companies that I've worked with are National Grid, which serves, which is one of the big utilities in northeastern territory of the United States and the whole of United Kingdom. So we work with huge distribution system networks, transmission system networks, doing energy forecasting. And I work with nuclear research laboratories like Idaho National Lab, that they are trying to use nuclear energy as a clean power source and how we can use it for providing base power with high renewable energy penetration. And then I've also worked with some hardware engineering companies like Schweitzer, which makes almost 80% of the relays in the world. And presently, one of my roles is performing simulations and other integration experiments, like what will happen when an electric vehicle would get integrated to the power grid, etc., as a part of the National Renewable Energy Lab in the US. Now, we're extremely grateful for having these opportunities to work with large organizations. One of the things that I've observed, and you also probably observed when you work at large organizations, is that you are part of a very big system. So one of the things that, of course, like you contribute and you're working, doing a good job, you're kind of adding value to the organization. And when you're obviously adding value to the organization, that is great. But as a human being, you strive for something that is more commonly known as impact. Now, like most people, if you ask for their startups and things like that, they'll say that they're doing it with an impact. And that is also part of my story, is that I was obviously adding value to some of the other organizations I was working with, but I wanted to create impact. Now, that is kind of a vague term on why we do a startup. What do you mean by impact? So in my definition, impact is basically the same thing, which is creating value, but instead of adding value incrementally by being part of a very large organization, you create value for society, and the value kind of self-multiplies. So that is how you could create an impact. So instead of adding one brick on the wall of someone else's building, you build the whole wall and deliver your results or share your gifts with everyone else. So that is what I mean by value versus impact. Now, some professions obviously have this concept of impact very intricately built into it. So, for example, the profession of teaching. If a teacher is imparting education to another individual, his or her student, then the student goes on to become something else in society and contributes to that. So that way, that nuclear effect of nuclear fission effect, I'd say, of creating value that passes on from one individual to another causes a big impact. And as a human being who wants to do something for the world, I think most of us would want to create impact. And that is why we see more and more people coming from the corporate world, but they feel they're just adding incremental value to creating impact. Now, while I'm delivering these slides, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself if you have that option and ask questions. We'll try to keep this as interactive as possible, and at any step in the journey, feel free to let me know if you want to talk about something else or get some questions. Now, so despite working, coming back to my story is right, despite working for those large organizations that create impact, I started working on two startup companies. One of them is called Sync, which predicts power outages. The other one is called Intlectual, which is basically trying to understand how different people, different communities, different sectors can use a planning tool for integrating say electric vehicle charger into their existing distribution network. So as the electric vehicle expands, we want to help people on bringing the clean technology instead of arbitrarily or in an ad hoc fashion adding such a huge load to the grid. So I believe that this is one way in which using I can contribute to the society and been working on towards that direction. Now, the next thing is these days one of the most common phrases that you see is that someone is doing a startup, and given the different kind of encouragements that we receive from our government, or we can see the social media, or within our own circles, it seems like everybody is doing a startup or the other. But one thing is not clear many times is what is a startup and what is not a startup. I mean, so having that definition, if you are in that phase of your life where you're thinking, or almost within you started the startup, or you're thinking of doing a startup, it's good to have that idea in mind where you know what is a startup. There are different definitions that exist everywhere, but I believe some of the key points that highlights what is a startup is that it has to surround a unique idea. It cannot be 5 ideas combined into one. Usually a startup is about a unique idea. For example, Google, when it was a startup, the unique idea was, can we simplify searching things on the internet? Or Facebook was, what is the best way to connect many people? So it has to have one unique idea. If whatever startup you're working on is addressing multiple ideas at the same time, it is already in a lot of trouble. The other thing is why many people love doing startups is because if you're doing this startup, which is basically about creating impact, you have the ability or the flexibility to execute your ideas fast. In a company, you might have to go through different levels of permission. It may or may not align with the business objectives of the company. But in a startup, you have the ability to take fast decisions on your own and implement your ideas. Then, one of the other reasons like why many people think that startup is such a glorious idea is because what they've heard from the internet or things like that have seen is that many of these startups have the chance for huge financial return. So you have an idea, you implement it, and that becomes a huge company of its own, and you get a huge financial return. So if that risk is not there, then probably the idea is not scalable enough, or if the opportunity is not there, the idea is not scalable enough. So startups are usually associated with the opportunity or the chance of a very huge financial return. But there is a catch that less than 0.001% of all these startups ever see any kind of a financial return. Most of them either get dropped along the way or the idea doesn't scale. Now, one of the goals or one of the outcomes that I really love to see of sharing these experiences is that if you are doing this startup, you will face I want to share some of my lessons learned so that you can incorporate into your thinking that can help you avoid at least a little bit in being on that 99.99% of the startups that never see this light of the day. So that is why you have to be very careful when you say what is a startup. Now, the other thing is that startup typically will always involve some investment of money from your side or someone else, and definitely a lot of investment of your time. It is not like you can just do it completely on the side or dissociate from it after working 2 hours a day. Your mind is always on. Startups typically have a very passionate founder. I mean, they're passionate about solving a problem, and it does solve the problem, whatever the idea is. And it's good to know that a startup is always a temporary phase in the real life of a company. So you cannot have a company that is always in a startup mode. It's just not sustainable. It is not scalable. And if it is not scalable, then the startup is headed towards failure. Now, to think of that, so basically when you're in the temporary phase and you're in a startup, you want to think about how you can grow the business, and I'll address those concerns a little bit later in this talk. Now, what is not a startup? Now, if you see someone who's doing a trial and tested idea, maybe they are opening some sort of a commerce store or an e-commerce store, that is not a startup. They're just starting a new small business. Or if someone is just investing money, say maybe like trading in the share market or finding some way to do it, or just investing in someone else's startup, they're not doing a startup. And if it doesn't solve any particular problem, a very defined problem, even if it solves like 50 different problems, it is not a startup. It is just some crazy idea. So it has to define and solve one unique problem, and it has to have that investment of time and money, and it has to be associated with one of your core passions in life or how you want to bring value to society. And if you have all those elements, you're probably doing a startup. Now, everybody is doing a startup, but having this definition clear up front will help you identify those who are doing a startup the right way and those who are doing the startup the wrong way. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know. Now, very frequently you would see someone, they come up with an idea that, hey, I want to do a startup, or I want to start my own company. Sometimes, if we might even pitch you the idea and ask you to invest in a business. Now, or it's sometimes even personal that you are having this idea and you want to invest your time or your family's time in a startup. There are 3 questions that I think one should always ask themselves before going any step further. First, is the definition of a startup clear to them? It's not like he does it, he has a startup, they have a startup, that startup raised $50 million, I should do a startup, that was brilliant idea. The examples of startups is not knowing the definition of the startup. Now, to know or having a mentor who has closely worked with the startup, those are very important. So you have to know what the startup is, what the life cycle of the startup is, what are the common mistakes people do in the startup. You have to know that. And unless that definition is clear, one should not venture into doing a startup. The other thing that people should know fully upfront before even thinking about committing to a startup is, how can I make money from a startup? What is going to be the business model? This is not the same as like a non-profit startup. There is nothing of a non-profit startup because there can be organizations that are funded by external agencies and you start up a unit or a branch, something like that. But startups typically are associated with venture capital where a person will invest money and expect huge returns. So what is the business model of the startup? It has to be clear whether you are selling it direct to customer, B2C, or business to customer, B2C, or whether you're selling directly from business to business, or you're selling it to a business who will eventually sell it to a customer, or B2B plus C, that you're selling both to business plus customer. I personally do not have any experience in direct to customer or business to customer sectors. I do not know how things work there. But what I'll try to share next in the next couple of slides will be associated with the business to business domain. And the other thing that I think one should know very clearly is that, okay, you have this idea, but do you know someone who will pay a certain amount of money, maybe like 1,000 rupees, for your idea? If you do not know who, very clearly, who will pay for this, then you are kind of in a disadvantage of the startup. If there is no one in your mind is absolutely clear that will pay for this startup, then it will also not be clear to them, and then eventually no money transaction will happen, and then over a period of time the startup will become part of the 99% of the startups that don't see the light of the day. Now, that being said, I'll start sharing my experiences is something like this. Like I told you, startups are about creating big impact. And a thing that, okay, I solve this problem, I know who my personal customer is, and I will create a huge impact in society. So my expectation is something that I thought would be a picture on the right, sorry, a picture on the left that says, oh, I create a big impact. But then it turns out that this is a very exhaustive journey. You are working a lot of hours a day, and at the same time, there are so many unknowns, so many areas where you can fall, and that is why you need the help of different mentors, people who have done startups before to kind of tell you you're doing this wrong, or you don't know the definition, you do not know your business model. So that way the goal is, if you're doing the startup, try to reduce the errors from leveraging the experiences of those who have done it before you. So that way you can reduce your exhaustion and frustrations that is associated with the startup. I mean, typically media paints a very glorious picture of what a startup is, and they will tell you the stories of someone, say, like Bolt, or someone startup saying we are raising like $50 million to solve this e-commerce problem. But real experience underneath it is way more nuanced and intricate and complex, and typically it involves a journey that involves a bit of luck, it involves a lot of networking, and it involves a lot of inputs from many people, which leaves the founders extremely exhausted at the end of the day. Any questions so far? Alright, thanks. Okay, now the other thing that I'd like to mention, that if you're doing a startup and you think that if you put in a lot of hard work, you are not likely to succeed. Unfortunately, you need to have a goal in mind. Just putting in hard work in a startup doesn't matter. You say, oh, I put in all my life's savings into this project, I'm working 120 hours a week on this project. Oh, I'm giving up my job to pursue this dream project. All these are kind of just important to you, but it doesn't matter in the real world whether you are working 100 hours a week or 2 hours a week, unless whatever you do improves someone else's or some business's life in some way or the other. So this is just like the definition of work where force and distance multiplied. Your impact or the success of your startup would depend not on just on the force, but how much improvement, what is the distance by which you improve someone else's life. So before we commit ourselves to doing that hard work or putting in all our money into a startup, it is very clear to understand the distance by which we will move someone else's life. If that understanding is not clear, it's better not to do a startup. And It may seem that why this person is so discouraging, like I'm here in this seminar to know more about startups, but it seems like the first 20 minutes of this conversation is saying don't do a startup. No, it's not that. My personal experience is do a startup that belongs to that 1% and reduce your risks of failure, because 99.99% of the startups fail and they can complicate people's lives down the road. So it's better to know how to do the startup the right way before committing your life's work to it. Now, why I'd say that, because there are a lot of unknowns along the way. I've been through this journey twice. Both of them have been in the energy sector, so most of my experience are in this highly regulated industry where there is lots of government rules, there are lots of private big name companies who you have to compete with. So it's very, very tricky. And it's true for most businesses, even if you have a great idea in the hotel industry, it is probably all the big hotel companies are your competitors, and they know a lot more, they have a lot more people power than a young startup would have. So to avoid the risk associated with all these unknowns, I believe it is very important to be familiar with 5 questions. First, how can you validate that the idea that you have is a good idea? The second is, okay, now that you have an idea and you have validated, like got some, this is a great idea from a significant number of people. Now, how do you protect your idea? Now, once you have some sort of protected idea, you have something what we call here in the West a moat. A moat, M-O-A-T, would be your like a secret recipe or something that you, some product that you have built that no one else can take it away from you, and you have all the legal protections associated with it. Now, okay, if you have your validated idea, your protected idea, you're taking this idea and building something at scale requires a lot of money and time. Now, how would you fund some of those ideas? You have to know some of those aspects. And then once you have built an idea or a prototype based on your idea, to make money, to achieve that kind of exponential growth that startups are expected to deliver, you have to sell your idea at the right price. So you have to know how to sell your product at the right price. And then one of the most important things along the startup journey is how and where to just discard your idea. I mean, sometimes the idea is good, it's just not just you do ahead of its time or do behind its time, and it's just better to discard the idea and move on. So in this conversation, I'll try to address some of these questions associated and help you create a framework in your mind or an awareness in your mind of all these 5 questions. Hold on to these 5 questions. Ask yourself these questions every time if you or someone else you know is on the way to do a startup. And the first question is, okay, now I have an idea, how do I go ahead and validate the idea? So I'll share 4 best practices in validating the idea, that whether your startup will grow or not. Is the first thing that you'd have to know, and I mentioned it before, is that do not leave your job or commit everything to a startup, or do not even take up a job in a startup that does not know who their first paying customer is. If no one is ready to pay or is verbally committing to pay you for your idea and the startup doesn't even know who to sell this to, the startup will not go anywhere. It is one of those 99.99% startups. So, and how do you know who will be your first paying customer is, of course, through outreach. Like you share your idea with many people and they will kind of tell you, give feedback, and based on that you can make your assumption that, okay, this idea is going to work or not. So the best practice is do not start up unless you know who your first customer is. And this feedback loop is kind of highlighted in the first 2 circles. If you spend a lot of time in discovering who your customers are, ask your customers if they want this solution. And once they have given feedback and you've gone through this loop about a couple of times at least, you have created a customer. So your idea and your customer are now familiar to one another, and they're kind of ready to buy. And once someone is ready to buy, then you go ahead and start building a company around it or a startup around it. So you have to talk and know who will buy your product first. And I'm talking specifically from a business to business sort of perspective. From direct to customer, of course, the things might be different. Now, the second best practice that I've realized is, and it follows on the first, is many people, and mostly the companies that belong to the 99.99% startups that fail, they just waste a lot of time trying to build a perfect product. They build and build and build, and they hope that okay, they will make the best version possible before sending out to the world. And by the time they've created the perfect product or close to the perfect product, they realize that they do not have any more money or time left to progress the idea any further. So, on the right side of the screen is companies that fail spend more time in the build phase. However, statistically and even conceptually, companies that do one version of the product and send it out to the world and then get the feedback, basically they spend more time in the learning and the measuring phases of the company. They give whatever they have built to their customer, and then they realize that, oh, the customer doesn't need this feature, they need this feature. And then they would iterate based on that, and they would continue to grow. So if you have an idea, and if you found the first paying customer, do not wait to build 50 different features. Plan to build just about one or two features, send it out to the world, and then the customer will kind of help you prioritize what feature to build next. The third best practice I'd like to share is that a successful startup is always extremely low risk. This is kind of contrarian in terms of concept, because everyone would say that startup is a risky venture. I myself have been saying it that 99.99% startups fail, so it is inherently very, very risky. But if we study who the successful startups have been, especially in the business to business sector, they have always been very low risk companies. It's almost like they knew the outcome before they even started taking an examination. So how do you identify whether your startup is going to be successful or not is by minimizing your risk. How you minimize your risk can be by looking at this little chart here, where your startup would require some of your domain expertise. For example, you can be an electrical or chemical or a mechanical engineer. Your solution expertise, which might be that you know how to build the solutions. For example, you're designing some sort of a table and your domain expertise is a carpenter, and your solution expertise that you know all the tools that is required to make a table. You have all the tools necessary, screw and saw and all the other things necessary to bring the table to life. And then you're passionate about building the table or chair. So if you have all those components, it is very likely that you will build a very good table, you will be able to build multiple tables and continue to delight your customers. Right? So you're very low risk in starting a table carpentry business. But for example, I want to start this startup like for a carpenter. I do not know anything about carpentry. I have never even touched many of the tools that a carpenter uses, and honestly I'm not excited about creating tables. However, someone tells me, oh, this, the work from home culture has created the new need for new tables, it's a $50 billion market, we should start a carpentry business. I have none of those things, like financial domain expertise, not solution expertise, not a passion, but just because there is a market, I'm pretty sure that I will start up in that domain, it will be one of those 99.99% startups and it will fail. However, if your startup is one of these three things, you have the knowledge, theoretical knowledge, practical knowledge, you know how to use the tools necessary to create the startup, and you're passionate about it, you will be able to create a startup. So always try to see below the blue line that you have either two of the three things at least. Within yourself or someone close to you is helping you build the startup. If they have it, if your team has it, then it's very likely that your startup will succeed. It's just like, like Sun Tzu said in his book, Art of War, because you have to know the outcome before you go into the battle. That the preparation is the important part, and having the right ingredients is very important to winning the war. The other best practice that I've shared is interview potential customers, and this again goes back to one of the first best practices is the customer discovery. Is that you've identified an idea and you've identified in your mind someone who is likely to pay for the idea, right? Now, first, you have to talk about their problems. Get into a phone call with them or meet them or whatever you want. You ask them questions that can help them put out the problem in their own words. For example, there is this battery manufacturing company that manufactures lead-acid batteries. Now, my goal would be to just want to talk to them about what are some of the inefficiencies that they face in the industry. Is there a problem? You hear them say that, oh, there is a problem with the supply chain, or there is too much inefficiencies, in the process. And the second, after you listen to them adequately, go and present your idea about the solution. So let them talk about the problem in the first interview. Go home and think about how you can solve that problem. Do not go to any customer meeting with a pitch. Say that, oh, Mr. Battery Manufacturer, I have this idea. They will get defensive and they will probably be polite and say, oh, okay, good idea, and then they'll never buy it from you. The first discovery, or the first meeting should be always about them speaking about their problems. In fact, the best practice should be, interview potential customers twice, and in the first meeting, never pitch your idea, hear what they have to say. In the next meeting, you can align your pitch to what some of the problems that they have mentioned. It's not that you have to change your product or idea, it's just you have to align it very closely to what they say. So for example, a classic example would be, say, some company is building a new kind of laptop, right? And that laptop is extremely fast. And they come to me and pitch me and say, hi, I have the best laptop in the world, will you buy it? And I'll say, no, I already have 2 laptops and I don't want your product, thank you. And that startup is built. However, if that same laptop company comes and asks me that, so how many laptops do you have? I say, 2. Okay, what do you do with your laptop? I will do this, I write Word documents, spreadsheets, and sometimes I watch a movie. Okay, so do you have any problems with your laptop? I'd say, no, nothing is bad. Then you can poke me and say, sometimes does it crash or you're working with like highly Excel sheets at the same time? Then I'd say, yeah, that happens. If I open like 5 files and watch a movie or YouTube on the side, it just crashes, it's not good. And then the person will say, you know what, I've built a laptop that doesn't crash when you have 5 files open. Are you interested? And that is when I am interested. I'm interested in a laptop that solves my problems. It's just that I do not know the problem unless someone kind of brings me to it. So that customer discovery phase is very important, and interviewing the customer in the right possible way is also very, very important. Okay, so any questions so far you have on this? Okay, no problem, I'll go ahead. Now the thing is, okay, now you are working on a startup, you have created the first question, your idea is well validated, You have pitched your idea to some customers, got some feedback, and you know that your idea will sell. Now, how will you protect your idea? Now, my experience and kind of wisdom in the startup world, the value of your idea is literally zero. And many times I come across founders who would want to, be very secretive about their idea. They think I'll steal it away or someone else will steal it away. It's almost never the case that no one will steal the idea and just build a product. It's especially in the business-to-business sector. So, for example, if someone is creating like an awesome vaccine and they have an idea for it and they come and tell it to me, I'll probably be not able to implement it. I cannot be able to execute on that idea. However, if they say, oh, my vaccine doesn't have this, one of the side effects of vaccine can be, like diarrhea, I'd say, oh, no, I don't want that. Then I've given him a feedback that whatever vaccine he designs should not cause diarrhea. So, something like that. So, the value of your idea, feel free to share your idea with your community, with your friends and family, and try to see what kind of feedback that you're getting. And some of these feedbacks will complement or help you support some of the other customer discovery conversations that you've had, and you will come across as passionate. So you can go and talk to everyone about your idea. So, for example, you're making this table company where you build amazing tables, you'll come across as a passionate individual instead of you just secretly building away a table and hoping that someday someone will find you building a table and buy the table from you. That's not how it works. So one of the things here is that if you are kind of secretive about your idea, try to think that someone else will steal your idea, that never almost happens. It's how you execute the idea, whether you can find the right team or the right resources to execute the idea in a coherent way, that really matters. And one of the good things or one of the bad things about an idea is, and if it's a really good idea, even after you have created a company and it's growing and selling a lot of stuff, anything that is worth selling will someone, somewhere or another, will always copy the idea. So ideas in themselves are not, they will copy it in a legal way. It's not like they'll really patent it, just find a way around it. It will be replicated and sold in a cheaper way, in a much more attractive packaging by someone else. But also there is this truth that whatever is the original, you cannot see someone else's passion about a product. So even if the product can be replicated, it is the founder who started the company. It is very unlikely to be replaced by some cheap copy being made somewhere. Anything that is worth selling will be copied. Don't worry about it. You can just say it has an ultimate form of validation that someone wants to copy your idea and take it as a compliment maybe. Now, for example, like Google as a search engine, when it came up in 1998, there were at least 500 other search engines that copied same Google design and everything that came up in the years 99 2000, but none of them went on to become Google because Google's idea was simplicity. And how simple is it to copy the idea of simplicity? And every browser and every search engine wanted to become simple and clean and nice. And there were 500 of those search engines, and almost none of them still exist 20 years later. So having an original idea is great. People to share the idea, even if it gets copied, don't worry about it. However, this brings to my next part is that it will get copied, but that doesn't, but to give you the legal protection, you need something called a patent, and you might be very familiar with the process of what a patent entails, or you may not be. And most people who have worked with some kind of commercialization of the technology have filed a patent in some way or the other. The reason why we have these patents is that even if someone copies it in some other way, they're copying it in some other way, not because it's exactly implemented. And most likely, the other way in which they have copied your product or idea is not just as efficient as how you, being a passionate individual with the highest domain level expertise, has created it. So basically, you kind of just block one way, or what would be the most efficient way of implementing your idea. That is what a patent is about. Blocking the most efficient way of bringing your idea to life. Now, I've taken this photograph from some other site we found on the internet, and it gives you a nice flow chart of the application process of a patent. It is typically an extremely time-consuming process. It takes 18 months, but this slide shows this from 2016, and as the number of volume of innovators have increased. Another dynamic relatedly is it's taking anywhere between 2 to 3 years after you file a patent to get a full patent. And but does it mean that your idea should stop or your startup should stop while you wait for a patent? No. Thankfully, our governments have created a nice way on which you can put in a provisional patent which kind of blocks out your idea for the rest of the world to copy, so that you are free legally to pursue your idea. And so feel free to leverage or learn more about how you can file provisional patents. It literally takes a fraction of the time to file a provisional patent, block out your idea, and pull out the customer discovery or other phases of your startup. I mean, almost no startup ever waits to get a full patent before it starts working on the ideas. Now in India, I think the last count, there is a link on this slide, and I'd be happy to share these slides with you. A patent filing typically requires 33 forms to be filled. It is incredibly tedious and sucks the life out of you. So that is why there are professionals and lawyers who have dedicated their lives to help innovators file a patent. And they're expensive. However, I believe that if we are working on some idea, we do not have the time to go through these 33 forms. And all of these forms have associated costs and complications. They're lengthy forms where you have to give all the details of whatever you're trying to create, etc., etc. And it's best left to a professional lawyer filing all these patents for you. And but when you are whenever the lawyer has developed a patent, it is important for the innovator to look through these forms that I just mentioned on this slide, form 1, 2, 3, 5, and 19. These forms are the most important forms that will define your innovation and how other people can either take away your innovation or any inaccuracy in forms 1, 2, 3, 9, 5, and 19 will be extremely risky. The rest 20 forms are okay. I mean, you can trust the lawyer to do whatever they have done. But be very careful about these 5 forms. Some other links where you can find more details are from the Indian IP website from the government, and you can find all the latest fees, etc. associated in the links below. Okay. Now, not to discourage that it takes 3 years. It takes 3 years for one to get a patent. Like I said, the governments do a very nice thing where we have created a law where they say first to file wins. So if you have an idea, if you have an idea, and you are the first to file a patent for that idea, then even if you get it after 3 years, you would, and meanwhile maybe 50 other companies have filed for the same idea on the start date after you, you would still be legally entitled to be called the first person to have implemented this idea. And for any legal reasons whatsoever, no one else will be able to implement the idea in the exact same way as how you envision it to be. So, fortunately, both in India and US follow the first to file system, which is great. So, a provisional patent will typically take you anywhere between 3 weeks to about 6 weeks, and within within 2 months, you can have your idea sealed, and then you can go ahead and start building the startup around it, knowing for certain that if your patent does get approved in about 2 years' time, no one else meanwhile can take that away from you. So, of course, this is a very important topic in the life of the startup. If you have a team working on it, this is one of the execution things that you have to pursue very rigorously and very frequently, but how you are protecting your critical assets or your intellectual property in the best possible manner. Okay, so now we have answered two questions in our mind, which is, okay, how can I validate the idea and how can I protect the idea? Now I have a good idea that is well validated and I have protected it. How can I bring this idea to life? How can I continue to grow? How do I fund my idea? Now, there are several ways of funding, extreme ways of funding, and I'll talk about three approaches. One of them is taking the route of angels and accelerators. Like angels stand for angel investors. They are typically a consortium of a couple of wealthy individuals. Mostly they have been startup founders in the past themselves. They've acquired a certain bit of wealth, and once they have acquired a certain bit of wealth, what they want to do is bring new startups to life. So in India there is a very nice network of Indian angel network, Mumbai angels, Chennai angels, Angel Prime, some angel investor associates that I am familiar with. And they would listen to your idea, and if the idea is good enough, they can expose your company to the vast network of other individuals in the industry that they know when you can go ahead and sell your idea. And they themselves will also invest money in your company, so that if your company grows, whatever 5% or 6% they take away from your company, they will profit. That's how they grow their wealth, by investing in great ideas. So that is one of the fastest ways you can ask for money. But in my list is ranked fourth because there are even faster ways than angel investors, which is by participating in accelerator programs. And myself have been part of this program called TechStars in the US, but similarly TechStars exists in Bangalore. And every year they select top 10 startup ideas with some sort of an implemented product, and they give you a huge amount of money, nearly about a crore Indian rupees, to pursue your idea. Similarly, Y Combinator. These kind of startups, accelerators would give you a significant amount of money, nearly about a crore rupees, and they just ask you to pursue your idea. The tricky bit is that both TechStars and Y Combinator is a bit competitive to get into. Meaning they have a vast network, so everyone almost wants to get into it, so it's very competitive. So that doesn't mean that we don't have an opportunity at accelerators. It's just that there are different accelerators with lesser networks that we can go to. The other important one is called Entrepreneur First, and it exists globally, like in Bangalore, Berlin, Singapore, and almost every other city in the world. They have this program called Entrepreneur First. We go with an idea, and they will fund you for a certain period of time. There is C Labs, 500 startups, Google Launchpad, Cisco Launchpad, and if you just search like top accelerators in India, you get a list of probably 50 or 60 accelerators that would be interested to hear your idea, and if they are interested, they will give you access to the network of people that they know, and to grow your startup and also put in some money. And of course, like for all the efforts that they would put in, they would take a share of your company. Right? So that's rare because they really help you scale up your idea really fast. Now, beyond this fast track process, there is a slow process that our government is encouraging for more medium and small business entities to come up. They are investing a lot in startups, and for which we should thank the governments for taking all these initiatives to grow young India into an idea generating and an idea implementing generation. And the good thing about these government grants is that they do not take away any percentage of your company. The government's interest is basically to grow the economy through their ideas. They do not want to grow rich or grow a company. However, and I've created a list of some very nice grants that I know in India. For example, the Intlectual grant, which is a collaboration between Indian and the US companies, and together you apply for a single fund, and if the idea is approved by DSC, you would get a significant amount of money, up to like 15 crores or something like that, to pursue your idea. Then a lot of other non-dilutive government funding opportunities are available with Startup India or Agartala. It is a nice website or a resource that the government has put up where you have access to different things like free graphic designers or free website builders for your startup idea, and free accounting software, and all those things, along with announcements of all these different grants and opportunities that your startup can work in. I think there is the SRG grant, which is a startup research grant that comes from SRB, from the government, this website with CSIR again puts up a lot of efforts in promoting innovations. So for basic sciences, if you have some fundamental technology associated with it, something related to pure sciences like some chemical formulation for creating a better medicine or something like that, CSIR grants are really great and they do support. And these are in addition to the grants that universities and colleges across India would receive or apply for. These are separate grants dedicated for small and medium-sized businesses and people to pursue their ideas. So I believe non-dilutive government funding is something that we can all apply for. Of course, processes lengthy, requires you to file in a good proposal. There is a lot of learning curve to that, but again, the good thing about that is it really helps you think through the idea, like when you're writing down your proposal. Sometimes it could be like, oh my god, what am I even writing? Does it even make sense? It helps you build a lot of clarity as you find these proposals in your business, and then once you've thought through, you apply to the grant from the government. And if it is good enough and if you're lucky enough, you will get the award. They won't take away anything from the company and you go from there. So just some links that we have to share these slides where you can have quick access to these links. Now, the other thing is that many times if you have this great idea and you feel that no accelerator thought that my idea was great, you apply for government grant, but it will take a year or so to come, or it didn't come at all. But you are so passionate and motivated by your idea that you want to do it by yourself. Then there is an extremely different way of finding your startup. It's an obvious way of how it's done. It's like becoming a polyprofessional. Now, polyprofessional is basically an individual who has one job, and on the side job, based on whatever the side job's incomes are, they want to fund the startup out of their own. So basically a side job can be they can work as a small-time consultant at another company. Maybe they can create a YouTube channel and make money out of it. They can do other crazy things like maybe mine bitcoins and sell NFTs and whatnot. In terms of having that second stream of income without letting off your first job, creating the second stream of income so that you can find your own startup idea to that level where you have a product that can sell. So that is one of the part of this way of becoming like finding your startup idea. But more and more as things become more competitive or slow due to different inefficiencies at different levels, we are seeing a rise of polyprofessional entrepreneurs who have day jobs, but at the same time they're working on startup ideas. And more often than not, this is exactly how most startups are actually built. Very few startups who want to become coming from like an accelerator, like Texas so far has funded about 20,000 companies, but only 4 or 5 of them have become like unicorns or $1 billion companies. But other companies, like say, especially in the business to business sector, like a cybersecurity company, they have these engineers working on side jobs, and once they have a product, they bring it out to life. So becoming a quality professional is a good way of managing the startup. It's extremely difficult because you are very constrained by your own time on how to become one. But there is some personal opinion I have about quality professionalism, and it's not just about startups. Many people do, as the world becomes more globalized, you will find more opportunities to have side jobs aside from normal jobs. So which is basically in the classical ways of consulting. You can consult for a company while you are having a day job. But with globalization and most of the work shifting to being computer or internet-based work, it is possible to get these workstations to be done. And many companies are looking for the exact skill set that you have at the same time. And the other thing is that you yourself can do many things at the same time. So that way, while you're building a startup or something, you can think about having these secondary income streams that can help you pursue these ideas on your own. Basically, you don't need any grants, you don't need any accelerator programs, you don't need any investors. So if you have any of those excuses that I cannot build a startup because I've not found an investor, then I'd say that is just an excuse. And if you really are passionate about your startup and you're validated the idea enough and you know that this is the future, there is a self-sufficient way of bringing your dream to life. Now, this is some ways in which I think you can find your startup dreams. Now, any questions so far? Alright. Okay, the next thing that I'll share with you is now that you have found your idea and you have a product, how will you sell your idea? You have something to sell, but how do you sell it? Well, the good news is that if you did a very nice customer discovery phase, and if you did lots of interviews, took their feedback, and identified real customer problems. I think an example I was giving, like my laptop was crashing every time I was opening 5 files, and a person has created a laptop that doesn't crash when I open 5 files, I will buy it. So similarly, if you validated your idea well enough to sell that to yourself, and you will sell it to those people who you are interviewed. Some other tips that I'll share with you is that, especially if you are in a business-to-business sector, so for example, you're an energy company and your product sells to a big energy company like Adani Power or Reliance Power, it's important to sell to one big customer first. Wait a minute, and instead of pursuing some small other batch manufacturer or someone in the energy supply chain, like instead of adding up 50 small segments or 50 small individual customers, because every time you go try to sell it to a small customer, you have to go through that same convincing process of why they should buy the product. But if you put in all your resources and try to sell it to one big customer, big name customer, say for example like DRDO is your first customer, then and you have convinced somehow DRDO to buy your product, now the next customer that you go to, your convincing time will be extremely reduced, because all you have to say, this is my product, DRDO uses it, do you need it? And then you think that, okay, if a company or organization as critical to the nation as defense research organization is using this product, then I think it's pretty good. So their bias is kind of completely shifted in your favor. So that is why it is very important to get a big customer first, and then in certain words they call it as the beachhead customers, and then you can leverage their brand name to leverage their reputation to kind of improve your own and get more sales thereafter. Now that is one way of, but I could believe is that if you're trying to sell in the B2B world, go for a big customer first. The other bit is that in many business to business deals, it is mostly about you're selling to your business is selling to another business, but at the more ground level, it is about you as a person selling to another person with decision-making capabilities, right? It is more of a person-to-person thing. It's more P2P than B2B in the global context of things. And when you meet the other person to sell, it really helps if you have a good reputation about you. If you have published papers, if you're presented in conference, and everyone knows that you are the kind of guy who works on this domain for the last 5 years, I've been listening to you. And when I have your attention and you have my attention, then it is a good environment for doing a sale. So basically, the short thing is try to popularize whatever thing that you're working on. You never know, it might come handy in promoting your startup maybe 5 years down the line. Now, some tools for that, of course, these days everyone uses LinkedIn. And I encourage you to be more active on LinkedIn because many of the decision makers of the professional lives use LinkedIn quite exhaustively for significant times of the day. So if they see your name in some of the topics that you have spoken about or presented on or published on, and then they're seeing your name on LinkedIn a couple of times, and then you come up with a product, it kind of adds a lot of credibility to what you have to do. And of course, the other things that are pretty obvious is try to network with as many people as possible when you're meeting them in conferences or events like this, like training workshops. Try to keep a good person-to-person relationship because in this interconnected world, you never know who knows who and how they can help you. So, my 2 cents would be try to, give your best to add value to any person you interact with, create good positive impression, and try to know other people by their first names or something about their family, or so basically have a good personal relationship, and then that will pay off in the long run. And of course, try to attend as many conferences, and since we are in a position where we can interact with students, other faculty members, or other professionals in an age group, it is very important to do the networking at everywhere we go, whether it's at trade shows, conferences, through like MOUs with other companies where you can exchange ideas and work on similar problems, etc. So don't worry about selling your idea, worry about validating the idea, worry about protecting the idea, and worry about making yourself famous. Worry is not the right word, it's like plan about validating the idea, plan about networking. And once you've done these 3 things or 4 things, your idea or your product will sell, and there is no way around it. Now, the other thing that I like to mention is how people typically perceive, or why people typically buy things. Because your idea, after all, at the end of the day, is some sort of a commodity. And when you're selling, means someone else has to buy it. And when people buy anything, it's because, apparently, in their mind, at the subconscious level, your idea has value. Now, the thing about value is that it is an extremely abstract thing. And this is value is something that we cannot very clearly see in black and white with our eyes. Value is something that an individual who buys your product feels. And that is where all these problems step in, like why some companies fail to sell, or fail to scale, or fail to grow. It's because they cannot articulate or express their value well enough. Now, the value to the individual, according to psychologists, is visible, is made visible if a person, in whatever sentence that you are saying, it's directly proportional to the tangible benefits of your product, which tangible benefits can be like cost savings, right? Like if you use the product, it will reduce 5,000 rupees from this process. Then, or the tangible benefit can be, if you use this product, it will reduce 10 hours of your workload, or it will improve your employee productivity by 15 minutes every day. These tangible benefits. So that has to be part of your pitch or sentence that you're saying. Then it's not just that, because if you just say that, okay, this saves you 5 hours a day, okay, good. What does it mean? I mean, I will still have to do my job. It saves 5 hours for my employees, yeah. But that thing also needs to be added with a little bit of the intangible benefits of the decision maker. For example, this will save you 5,000 rupees in this process every time you use our product, and at the same time, it will make you look good for improving the performance of your company. And then, when you say that in your sentence, you have that attention. Oh, I not only save 5,000 rupees, but I stand a chance of promotion if I buy this. I'm interested. So you have to communicate a tangible benefit and intangible benefit. And then, if I have to buy a product in a business and I have a boss from which I have to get permission from, right? So how can I tell the same thing to my boss? Because to my boss I cannot communicate the intangible thing that I will get a promotion if I do this, right? So to the boss I have to highlight the tangible aspect in an annualized form. So for example, my boss who deals with like the big currency terms, like he deals in numbers like 5 crores a year, 15 crores a year, or something like that. So that when that picture will have to go to the boss, it will have to read like, this will save you 5,000 rupees every time you run the process, and you run this process 365 days a year. So you will see a savings of about 15 lakh rupees every year if you improve this. And it has these modern features like AI and machine learning and blockchain that helps you do that. So that comes in the last. I mean, no one will buy your product just because it has AI. People will buy your product if it makes them feel good, if it has some tangible monetary benefits to it, or time-related benefits to it, and then you will be able to communicate the value of the idea just by directly, which is directly proportional to these things, like how much tangible benefits exist, how much intangible benefits exist, and what is the total annual value that you bring into the table. Now, of course, all these tangible benefits and value is great, but at the same time, the next question the person will ask you is, okay, all these are great, and how much does it cost? And you say it costs you 50 crore rupees to implement that. And that's no, that's too much. So, cost does play a very big role in communicating the value. So if you put it in a mathematical formula, it becomes like the value becomes inversely proportional to the cost. And however, it's like WhatsApp, right? It has these tangible benefits, like you can talk to a person anywhere. It has this intangible benefit that you feel globally connected, and all these video messaging and everything that was missing from our previous SMS services. Those are the features, right? That's why we have this. However, the cost of WhatsApp is literally zero. I mean, after you don't pay anything for it, right? So the value for that service is extremely, extremely high, and it is not very complex. Like everyone with a phone number can use WhatsApp, so the complexity is zero. So that is why WhatsApp has become such a valuable product in the market, because it has lots of tangible benefits. It is low cost, low complexity, and that's the value is. And no one ever told you that this is why you should use WhatsApp. Everyone you kind of saw the product in action, and you got the value intuitively. And that is exactly how things work. You do not read a value statement, you feel a value. And however, your audience or the person to whom you're trying to sell it to will have to feel the value through your words. And it's up to you on how you craft your message, and craft your message in such a way that conveys these tangible benefits, intangible benefits, some of the features, make sure it's low cost and low complexity, and then people will see the value and start adopting your product. Alright? Do you have any questions so far? No, great. And the final question that I'd like to highlight is, of course, like you have to work on an idea, you have invested a significant amount of time and resources in this, but sometimes we need to move on or move to a better idea that has a better chances of an economic payoff. So this is the last part of your idea journey or the startup journey. You need to know that you cannot pursue an idea indefinitely. You as an individual and your family and friends have finite patience and finite resources to pursue something. So it is good to know when you can give up. And giving up is way, way better than failing in a very bad manner where you have lost all your life savings or you wasted 50 years of your life or you have given up some of the great job opportunities. So you know when you have some idea on how you can pivot. So and it's good to know that pivoting, which is basically the change of idea, that's what we call it in the industry since 2008. Pivoting is one way on how you can also help your startup grow. Now there are several ways, several layers on which how you can change your idea. So I have taken this pyramid from a book called Indian Gary Boogie. I encourage you to read that book. It's called Lean B2B. And in this book, it talks about this pyramid where the first, the simplest way you can change your idea is, by talking to more customers, seeing where and how they use your products, and then they see that what features you can add or what little change you can make to sell your product more or improve the customer experience. That's a very simple change of idea. It's very easy to implement and it just improves your startup. The second thing is that of the problem and pivot. So basically the first thing is just changing your solution a little bit. The second one is obviously one order of magnitude higher, which is called the problem pivot. So basically you start thinking, am I even addressing the correct problem? So for example, going back to my laptop example, where my laptop was crashing when I had my files open and the other person came with the laptop that had a great sound system, I would not buy it, right? So that person would have to pivot and say that, okay, my sound system is great, but I am interested in solving your problem about your laptop crashing when you have 5 spreadsheets open, right? So they have to change the problem definition. Now, the other thing where you are kind of changing, you might have to change your idea is that, are you selling to the right people? For example, you are a manufacturer of t-shirts, right? You can say you have kid-size t-shirts and you're selling it to adults that will never sell, right? So instead of opening a shop in the kids section of the market, you'll have to go to the adult section of the market. So that is why you have to think of if your problem is not selling with, say, the cybersecurity team of large organizations, or the energy procurement team of large organizations. Just think through that if you are actually selling to the right team and just by changing the department whose doors you go and knock, you might be able to sell a lot more. But this that is again idle time is another order of magnitude more difficult. Now the other thing is that if you think the first 3 changes are not working out for you, then it's a good time to ask, am I even in the right market? Is my product more suited for the pharmaceutical industry? Or is my product more suited in the energy industry? Am I even in the right space? So these are the fourth and the fifth pivots is kind of question your product's existence in wherever you're trying to sell. And this is perfectly alright to have that. For example, there have been companies that used to, manufacture parts or like cars, but at the same time they realize that, okay, this car manufacturing market is not going great because like a Bosch or General Motors manufacture some of their own parts. So they don't need some of the stuff that I'm selling. So what this company did is that they went from this automobile industry and started manufacturing high precision instruments for the surgery industry in the healthcare sector. So it's perfectly alright, but again it requires complete change in your team. So now, before you had hired, say, mechanical or automobile engineers in your team, now you need to hire pharmacists and people belonging to the healthcare sector in your team. So that kind of a huge shift is always hard to do, but it requires we need to do it. And after we have gone through these 5 possible changes, and even after all these 5 possible changes, which are increasingly and significantly more costly change than one ahead of its time, even if after that you see that your product or idea is not selling, then it is a good time to go back to the very first step that we discussed in the presentation, which is about validating your idea. Or in other words, restarting your startup in a different way, by doing better validation with the right set of people. But change is part of the process, deciding, and idea is also part of the process. The important thing is to keep moving on, not being stagnant or fixed in a certain aspect of your business. I mean, you can get, the good thing is you can remain fixed on your passion. You can be passionate about creating the best, the sharpest needles on earth. But whether that needle gets sold in the automotive industry or in the healthcare industry, you need to be flexible towards that. So that's my thinking, or based on my experiences, is all that I have to share with you. Now, thank you all for listening to me. That's all I had in terms of presentation. This is my email. If you have any questions, please feel free to email me. And I'll be happy to take questions now, or if you feel you want to reach later on for some other questions, again, I'm open to interacting with you. Thank you. That's all I want to share. Thanks.
Do you have any questions, participants? All participants? Do you have any questions? Do you want something? I think there is no question, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The lecture was really very nice.
Thank you, Dr. Moon. It was my pleasure presenting it.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Alright. So I think you drop off.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.